Well, I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I was just telling everybody what we're speaking about, which is
Ah,
Poison Ivy.
my baby.
And it's actually finally getting chillier where I am, so it feels like the perfect time to kind of be getting into it's so like crisp and fall looking on the cover. So
I know everyone's in like sweaters. Like most of the book is like sweaters, and like men in sweaters. And so when I was thinking about putting it out, like starting some of the promotion for it, it was in the summer. So I'm like, when can I put up these like sweater weather posts? Cause it's 85 degrees in September and
no, I understand. And I mean, honestly, it wasn't until literally a couple days ago that it started finally feeling cool here. So I'm ready for it.
oh yeah, same. My favorite season.
But I hope it's warm for you this weekend.
Oh, yes, Napa. It's warm-ish, but like nice, and very, very sunny. So perfect for like a vineyard wedding. Not mine, but yeah, I get to be a guest and relax and drink wine. So
Well, we can go ahead and jump in, and I just want to start with you kind of giving us a little bit of background about you and your author journey to this point.
yeah, absolutely. I am Ava Rani. I have written 4 books now. The Biotech Billionaire series was my debut series. The Spare, the Heir, and the Charmer, and now my 4th book, newly released last week, is Poisoned Ivy. My first series was my debut series, and it was originally indie published. And so I sort of put it into the world because my professional life, I am very outside of writing. So I didn't really know what the steps of getting a book published were. In my mind, I was like, I'm going to write this and then I'm going to send it to someone on Etsy to like get it bound nicely, and then call it a day. Like put it on my bookshelf, be happy as a clam. But the thing about writing is that it gets so addictive, that you write the first book. And then as I was writing The Spare, the idea for the Heir and the Charmer came about. So I ended up writing them, all 3 of them. And then kind of as I'm doing this, I discover what like indie publishing is. I'm like, oh, that's perfect for me. Like I don't have like the wherewithal, honestly, to go through the grueling process that is finding an agent. And then going on submission and all of the other things that go along with traditional publishing. And so at the time, I really didn't think much of the story. I sent it to an editor, just to make sure like it made sense. If I was getting it bound and put on my shelf, I wanted it to be good. Like not expecting really anyone to read it except me. And the editor reached out and was like, "Hey, I think that this could like be something. Like this is the process for traditional publishing if you're interested in it." And that felt like going to college and like grad school and residency all over again. And so I was like, no. But like I might just do this like indie publishing way. And like if people find my story, that would be really cool. And if they don't, that's fine. Like my original plan was just me reading it, right? And so a few people found The Spare. By the time I published The Heir, though, and kind of, the way that books blow up online, it kind of had a moment on TikTok, or like half a moment, I think, on TikTok. And it got noticed by a lot of people. My current agent was one of those people. And so she read it and we chatted and she was like, I think, this, if you'd like to take it to a bigger audience, we can put this out there to see if we want to get it traditionally published with the whole series. And then by then, I have gone from my original goal of 1 reader, me, to like 5 readers. And then I was like, when I put The Spare up, I was like, if 5 people read this, I will be so amped. And at that point, we're at thousands, right? And so I was like, I would love to get this to a bigger audience. So we signed a 4-book deal with Avon to republish the indie books, The Spare and the Heir, and then publish my 3rd and final in that series, The Charmer. And then a 4th that's actually coming out in May of next year. And so that was kind of, I fell into traditional publishing, I say. Or like, I kind of like, it didn't run into me. I sort of like ran into it unknowingly. It was kind of like a meet ugly, if you will. But yeah, that's how it happened. And so when I decided to do a few titles traditionally published, I also wanted to keep my hand in indie publishing because it is very, I don't know, I feel like it's very cathartic to do an indie book because you get to do kind of everything front to back, which is painful. But it's also really fun to kind of be involved in every stage. And if you're like a type A like me, who probably like bothers everyone at my publishing company with my emails. They're so sweet. They're like, we will be happy to answer, and they answer all of my questions. But I am so like nitpicky, so I am, I have 1,000 questions. So indie publishing is great because the only person I'm bothering is me. And so I really wanted to keep indie publishing, and I thought that the Legacy series would be really great for it. And Poisoned Ivy is the first in the Legacy series because it's new adult, which is relatively new in the publishing landscape. And it's college, and it kind of like, I feel like it flips around a couple of genres. It is very much a romance. It's cemented in the fact that it is a romance novel. But we also have like a mystery going on. We have commentary on kind of like race, class, fitting in, cultural identity. And so there's a lot going on in that book. And so it's one of those things that like maybe was going to be a little more difficult to comp. And I wasn't sure how much I wanted to change its like bones. And so I figured the Legacy series would be my indie series. And my more kind of like traditionally published type books would stay traditionally published. So yeah, that's where I'm at now with
I
Poisoned
love that.
Ivy.
I love that. And we love Avon, so I'm glad you're with them. They're so great. I mean, just from what I've been able to, work and know of with them. So
Mm-hmm.
that's exciting.
Yeah, and look at those covers. They redid the indie covers for the Biotech Billionaire series, and they are stunning. And I know that poor cover designer probably got so sick of me because I had so many ideas. But they incorporated all of them, and it turned out gorgeous. And so I love that series.
I know I have them around here somewhere, but I won't go drag them out. We are talking about this one. So
That's true.
we're gonna jump into it. And I know it just came out, so I don't want to get too spoilery, but can you give a summary for people watching or listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So I call it my Never Have I Ever meets Roy Gilmore's college years, because it's about a school reporter who's like very ambitious, who sort of like beg, borrows, and steals her way into a secret society, because she needs a story for the newspaper. And the reason she needs a story for the newspaper, she's like very elaborately living a double life. Because she has very strict parents, and so she kind of has like a burner cell phone, a secret bank account, and so she needs to like win awards and stuff to keep that life going, to keep it funded. And so she's like, I need to win this, feature contest at the paper. I'm going to write about the secret society. Hey, I found a way to like sneak in. And she is just very messy. And so like in her mind, she's like, this is a great idea. She sneaks in, immediately caught, like didn't think about the fact that like she probably didn't fit in there, She's immediately caught by the handsome, unambitious Conrad Hastings, who promptly but like very gentlemanly kicks her out. And she kind of like thinks like, oh no, like this might be the end of it. But she realizes that Conrad is also a like, rich kid legacy ne'er-do-well type, but he works at the paper because his family owns a big media company, a la Gilmore Girls. And he doesn't really do much for the paper, and he's kind of in hot water because of it. And so in order to help him kind of like appease the paper, appease his like terrible father, Melina proposes that they will team up on this article. She'll do all the work, like she's not going to make him do anything, but he has to let her into a few events of the secret society, and she won't like spill any like tea or anything like that, but she needs to see the inside. And he like very reluctantly agrees. And she is like, for the first like third of the book, like just a menace to him. And he's kind of a menace back. And when they are at a secret society party, they actually uncover a mystery happening through the campus that involves artwork, and like more specifically forgeries of art. And so they kind of embark on unraveling a mystery. And while they do that, they have this chemistry and this tension that kind of like spirals together. And as they unravel the mystery, Melina's two lives keep like creeping closer and closer together until they eventually collide. Because, that's going to happen. And we have a mess, and they have to figure out how to clean it up.
So what was it like, and this is not something you're new to, but how do you approach writing dual points of view?
So it's tough. I will say writing dual POV is a unique challenge, because if you write a single point of view, the only like evidence for character growth that you really need to provide as one person, right? Everything else is assumed through that one person's point of view. When you write two POVs, you need to be very, very careful in how you format their character arc, right? So you need two full character arcs. You can't just have one and kind of like half of one of the other person. And so like dual POV is really tough in that respect. And so usually what I do is the first thing I start with is like, how do I want these characters to start? Like, what do I want them? Like, what do you love about them? And like, what do you hate about them? And then like, how do I change it so that thing that you hate about them, like it might still be a part of them, but like it grows and becomes better. Right. And so while I do that, you know, I kind of like plot out little points on like how they can kind of like tilt and tilt and tilt into like, you know, a changed person. So I kind of do that at the same time. So like I can kind of make their points of growth happen like at similar times, and then kind of find the events that would kind of precipitate that type of growth. Like for example, Conrad is lazy. And his initial reaction to Melina trying to like force him into helping her is no. But like he at first agrees primarily because it means it's less work for him to do. Then he keeps going because he's like attracted to her. And a part of him like wants to sleep with her. And then he keeps going. Then there are parts where he could stop and kind of call it a day, but he wants to keep going. And he has this like internal drive to do something and complete a task and like feel proud of himself. And so in those little turns, you go from like unambitious playboy to like person who really does want to like grow and change for himself. And I do that alongside Melina, kind of like pushing him forward. And as he's pushing, or as she's pushing him, he's kind of pulling her, and they kind of like tumble around until they get to a point where they're both better because of the other person. It is tough though. It is like a really tough thing to do, especially in the plotting stages when you're just trying to like figure out who these people are. And while you're doing that, you're trying to figure out like how you're going to fix them and how the other person's presence is going to help fix them.
So we've talked about like you kind of alluded to discussions about race and social class and things like that. And so I want to talk about Melina's family because she has a lot of pressure to be like this perfect daughter and do exactly what she's told. And as you've already talked about, you know, she's living this double life, meaning she is that way to their face, but she's who she wants to be when they're not looking. So like why was that such a big part of her story? And do you feel like it had a lot to do with her race and cultural background? Like, can we talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that is absolutely like an experience I think a lot of like South Asian women face, especially in like the Western world. I would say personally, like I was Melina. Luckily for me, I didn't go to college in the time that location settings were a thing. So I could just lie, you know, and get away with it. But I think for a lot of people, I was actually talking to Caroline Frank, another author, and she was like, I grew up in Venezuela. My parents sent me to college here. I had location settings on. And like, I was in New York one day and I was supposed to be in Boston. And my dad calls me like, what are you doing in New York? She was seeing her boyfriend that they didn't know about. And she had to like on the fly make up a lie and just kind of be like, oh no, like next time maybe I'll leave my phone at home. And it's kind of this, I think it's cross-cultural certainly where women especially get the brunt of the like respectability politics, where there's a lot on our shoulders to be good, and like whatever good is or what respectable is changes by culture, but regardless, women often have to carry that as opposed to men. And so I specifically wrote this from the eye of a South Asian woman who is in college and under the very specific pressures of like South Asian parents. I do think that a lot of that translates over to a lot of different people. But for Melina, it was absolutely, you know, parents who expect perfect grades, expect that you not talk to like don't talk to boys, don't have relationships, and not in a like it will distract you kind of way, but more of like a you are an investment and like that is a ding, right? It's almost as though like you are a commodity, and if you are ever seen as like dinged in some sense, we've lost some ROI. And so that is really like a tough, like central message to cope with, right? And that's not every family, but it is enough where like, you know, this is something that women in the diaspora have talked about a lot. And so I wanted to talk about it from the South Asian perspective because it happens to us a lot. And there is this knee-jerk reaction for writers to kind of paint their own like ethnicity or their own race in like a bright color because they don't want their internal problems to like be out in the world, right? Kind of that like, what will people think? You know, like I don't want to write something critical of South Asians because then people are going to think that like we're not perfect, but we're not perfect, right? And I think this was like a way to kind of interrogate why it is that this happens so often, and provide some level of like support to anybody who is reading it who goes through that type of thing, because it is very isolating feeling like, you know, at any moment, if you step even a toe out of line, you may lose all of your family's like emotional, financial, like all of that support in one go. And I think that fear is what keeps so many people in line, right? And like a lot of this story was kind of based off the idea of like, what if like all the like women that defied expectations didn't, you know, like what would their lives look like? What if they had done what they were supposed to do? Because like the people who make history often are not doing what they were supposed to do. And so that was kind of the impetus to write it, certainly from the South Asian perspective. But I do think a lot of, especially a lot of readers have reached out saying like, you know, I'm not specifically from the South Asian diaspora, but I had parents that were just like this, or I had very Catholic parents that were very, very free and open with my brothers. But like for me, the rules were different. So I think it affects women a lot in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. And then on the other hand, you have Conrad, who is this rich, seemingly spoiled, flippant boy who, you know, yes, he does have a terrible father. That is a fact. But he kind of gets things effortlessly. He kind of is able to kind of skate by and not really worry about too much. So I want to know more about how you are able to write a character like him who he's still tolerable. He's not, unbearable. He is someone that you do like care about and want to have good things happen to him. So like how do you write that dynamic of a person who is privileged and spoiled while also being someone that you want to root for?
Right. And like also he's like he gets to be by the end of the book relatable, which is hard to do when you're, you know, some like rich kid, right? The first thing for Conrad, like I did want to introduce him as like privileged. So like the first couple of scenes that we have with Conrad is him like doing something that's, you know, one accessible only to the wealthy, right? Like crew. I wanted him talking about the scroll and ID and brief mentions of his mom, but nothing too big. But like the first kind of like way to like peel back that like rich kid who doesn't care about anything, kind of like facade he has was to like show the reader what he does care about, right? He doesn't care about school, doesn't care about really anything outside of his friends or crew, but he does care about his mom. And so the first way I kind of like got the reader a little more invested in Conrad is showing them why it was that his mom was so important to him, right? Outside of being his mom, right? But like his mom to Conrad kind of represents like good innocence, right? Like his mom is just a bystander. And when you're that rich, you don't live in gray, right? Like everything for Conrad is very black and white. Like you're either a liar or you tell the truth. You're either like his mom or you're like his dad. And so Conrad, like early on, like you see, like he's just like, okay, well, my mom is good. She's innocent. My dad is not. And like, I want to protect the person that is innocent. And like that, I think resonates with readers very quickly. So I think that kind of like endears people to him. Right. But not too much, right? He's still kind of douchey, in the beginning. But like the next, I think like step is like showing him in like tiny little ways being like careful with Melina. So like when they discover that there's a mystery afoot, like as they're going through the catacombs, he does these like very subtle, like protective things. They're like gentlemanly and sweet, even though like Melina is actively like jumping on his last like good nerve. He is still very like protective and like, this is a person that I brought in here. Like I should make sure she's okay. And so like you kind of like see that shine through. And then as we peel back more and more layers, you learn why it is so important to him to be the opposite of his father. And that's how we get the person that we see. And so for him, it was a lot about like just introducing the reader to little bits of information about what is important to him and why. that makes him relatable. And then by the end, you're kind of like rooting for the guy. You're like, oh, they're like, no, we love you. And now that's, that's what I was hoping for. So, mission accomplished. But yeah, it was all about kind of slowly introducing the things that matter to him.
And pivoting a little bit, well, kind of a lot, because we've talked about them as characters, and now getting more into the plot of it. I know so many of us love a like mysterious academic novel. So, what was it like? I mean, this is different from your Biotech Billionaire series. What was it like kind of getting into the mystery of it and unraveling it, but also not giving too much away during the process? Like, how did you approach all that?
So I wrote the mystery, or like I wrote out the steps for the mystery first. And then I found ways to kind of like inlay it into the story. So originally there weren't catacombs. I built those in after hearing about lore from Harvard that Harvard owns the ground underneath the school. And so like when the Boston subway came to try to like build a subway station closer to campus, they wouldn't let them because it had actually been signed to them by George Washington. I was like, that's cool. And so incorporate that. So that's how I kind of like added that added a layer of like being able to add a layer of being able to like move around without being seen, right? But yeah, I first put the mystery in, and then I figured out where I was going to put the clues because I knew the clues would be really instrumental. I'm going to move this because I have sun on my face. I knew the clues would be really instrumental in getting like the characters to develop, and so I think I made it work. Okay, that's better. Okay, in character development. So I wanted like a clue to come up, and I wanted that clue to either push them together or pull them apart. And so like I wanted the clues to kind of like do double duty, right? And so especially like the first half of the book, the clues push them together. And then the clues like towards the end, as they start to unravel, what really pulls them apart is Melina, and the clues kind of serve as this adhesive that sort of like keeps them interested in moving that story along. But yeah, so when I wrote the mystery, I kind of first figured out who was going to do it. And then I like walked it back to figure out like how they would do it, and like why they would do it. I will say on my first draft though, I sent it to my developmental editor and she was like, oh, I clocked it in like chapter 10. And I'm like, what? And so I had to change, I changed a lot of the book, not like chapters wise, but like I changed a lot of little details to kind of like pivot away from too many hints. I kind of made the hints a little bit more ambiguous, I think, that helped. I have been asking everyone who's read it, I'm like, oh, did you know who it was by the time you got to the person? Most people say no, so I'm like, great.
Yeah, great job. I mean, I feel like I tend to figure things out relatively quickly, but I didn't this time. I was pretty much surprised at the end. So I think you did a great job.
Oh, well, thank you.
So we did talk about your Biotech Billionaire series, and that is adult romance, whereas this is that new adult that you mentioned. It's collegiate. So, what did you have to keep in mind? What were the different elements to consider when writing college age people versus like fully fledged adults in the big grown up scary world?
Well, the one like big thing is like when you write younger people, they're dumber. And so I had to write like not dumber characters. Like I think they go to an Ivy League school, they're smart people. But I had to write people who act a little more immature, right? Like a little more knee jerk. Um, and so I had to write Melina and Conrad as people who would see the things that they're standing up against as actual like, oh my God, my life might end, right? Like for Melina, she really thinks going up against her parents, her life might end. Me, like in my mid 30s, I'd be like, girl, no, you're fine. Like make your own money, you'll be fine. But like telling that to a 22 or 21-year-old who up until that point has been financially dependent, emotionally dependent, a lot of her ties are through her family. I needed that to feel like her world would come apart if she were honest. And so that was one thing. in writing a 21-year-old, I kind of have to keep in mind, where they're at, where their head's at, right? Like they are adults, but just newly adults. These are the years where they're going to become the people that, they are in adulthood. They just left their parents' house or like, boarding school, but they just left like this environment where who they are was molded by someone else, right? They left their parents' house where their parents were kind of like deciding who they were. And now they kind of have the freedom to do it, and they have the freedom to do it around the people they choose to do it around, right? And so it was really important to me to write people who are true to that age group, right? Things are a lot scarier when you don't know what's going to happen. You don't have a future yet, right? Like you have no way of making money yet. So a lot of what you have to think about if you're thinking about your future is like, am I going to be okay if I deviate from my plan, right? Like the plan is there for a reason. And so that was the biggest trouble, primarily because, when I write 30-year-olds, they kind of have their life together, and so their problems are usually a little bigger, but they're well equipped to handle them. The early 20s, they're not well equipped to handle them. And so I kind of have to write true to the characters. And that means like Melina's pretty messy. Like she's not she doesn't have it together. She thinks she has it together, but like she does not.
And if you could only have readers take one thing away from this book, what would you want that thing to be?
Live your life like you have never once thought, what will other people think?
I love that.
Because
That's,
it, it
yeah.
it takes so long in life too. Like, you learn that much later in life, but like if you lived your life like that from the start, like you would be so happy.
Yeah, I always try to, luckily, I feel like I had a mom who helped me figure that out super early on, but I'm always telling people that too. Like, honestly, no one is paying as much attention to you as you're paying to yourself. So, like, just do what you want.
Do what you want. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm from a very conservative, like morally conservative, if you will, South Asian family, and I write romance. I'm like, I'm like proud as hell of it. And so, if anyone gives me a moment, I will talk about it at the family function. And it's a great way to live. Like, it's a great way to just like be yourself. And it's very freeing. And I think once you learn that in life, you realize like how freeing it is, especially if you went through adulthood, kind of like really being stuck in that, like, what will people think mentality. When you stop caring, it's like freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the other side of this, for writers or aspiring authors specifically, do you have any advice?
Write the book that like you want to write. There are a lot of especially aspiring writers who are like, well, what if no one wants this book? Or like, what if no one cares about this book? If you don't start writing the book you want to write, like you can always change that book to like go in different directions if you want. But if you are not writing something you want to write, the readers can tell you're not going to want to do it, and you may not even finish. So like, especially if it's your first story, write what you want to write the story that like lives inside you, that's waiting to come out. And then like figure out I am a strong believer that everything is marketable. So like figure out the marketability on the tail end of it. Like Poisoned Ivy is doing the best out of all of the books I've ever published, and it is not a single, like it doesn't fit into any genre. It's kind of a lot of things. And it's fun. And like my marketing plan for it was very much based in like, do you like this show and this show? Like mush them together and that's the book. And so like I think as long as you have a really solid story that you want to tell, that like readers can feel that you want to tell, you will find a way to get it to readers.
Absolutely. I love that. And I don't want to rush this moment away because Poison Ivy did just come out, but I can't let you go without asking what is next. You've hinted at a couple of things, and well, if you want to talk about them, we'd love to hear it.
So we have in May, my fourth book with Avon is a standalone romance. It's called Out of Her League, about an orthopedic surgeon who has to fake date a like soon to be retired like footballer at like this big billionaire's wedding in Paris because her ex is going to be there, and her ex is like newly engaged to this like gorgeous socialite, and so she like has to show him up. So she enlists the help of a like soon to be retired soccer star who he used to idolize. Like her ex like loved him growing up. And so she's like, you are going to be the person that like makes his skin melt off. So they go to this fancy wedding in Paris. There's only one bed and things happen.
That's exciting. I cannot wait for that.
Yes, and then for Legacies, book two is next fall. It is a bodyguard romance. Sabrina Alders is the daughter of like a very like what is it, prolific political family, and so she has Secret Service detail. That Secret Service detail is hot, and they're abroad for the semester, and so things happen.
Yeah, we see a little bit of that in Poisoned Ivy, and I already was like, okay, I'm ready
Yeah,
for
I
this
clocked
one.
it.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, and everybody watching, please go get Poisoned Ivy. You're gonna have the best time with it, and yeah, I'm good luck as it's going through. I know everyone that I've seen talk about it has loved it, so I'm excited
The
for more
response has been
people.
amazing. I am overjoyed.
Well, good. I'm so glad, and I hope you have the best time at the wedding, and that
Oh,
you just
thank
have
you.
so much fun.
I will be celebrating the release and the wedding.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, absolutely. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.